Nestled in the most picturesque of Pecolban settings, Roberts at Peppertree has become something of a hunter institution. Nearly 12 years since its establishment, owner Robert Molinès has perfected a recipe for success in an unpredictable industry, winning 2 gongs, including Restaurant of the Year, at the Restaurant and Catering New South Wales Hunter Region Awards.
So a big applause.
The Cuisine King today sharing the glory with his staff.
So we're talking about big team, we're talking about like a family sort of atmosphere, so it means a lot.
This French foodie has seen plenty of changes since setting up in the valley. He says the region now has an enviable culinary reputation.
30 years ago, the valley, Newcastle and the whole of this Hunter region was not what it is today, so it's very exciting.
35 local businesses were honoured in this year's awards, Mayfield's Bella Vista winning the other major category, Caterer of the Year. As for Robert, he has a new focus since a recent illness.
A bit more self-discipline, you know.
But absolutely no plans yet for retirement. It's a snapshot of alcohol's ugly side. The dangers of drinking to excess are highlighted in a new campaign launched today by the Newcastle Cessnock and Maitland Liquor Accords. It's a fresh focus, urging patrons to take greater responsibility, both in licensed premises and in their own homes.
Premises are working well, they know their legislation, but the patrons in the community must know that they have to work under some guidelines too, and it's self-respect and knowing it, enough is enough.
Featuring locals telling realistic stories, the campaign draws on the experience of people like Wayne Delves, who also works in the hospitality industry.
We try and advise people, and people have got to take our advice and use our help.
The Hotels Association hopes the push may be backed by legislation, with individuals sharing some of the legal consequences of bad behaviour.
At this stage, the total responsibility and infringement falls on the employees, our employees, and our licensees.
It's hoped the program will eventually be adopted across the state. Natasha Bayersdorf, NBN News. With confidence and pride in their culture, these boys symbolise the future of a united Aboriginal community. Hundreds came together today at Bolton Point to celebrate the start of Black on Track. It's a hunter-developed program focusing on men, designed to give them the help they need to overcome a raft of social problems.
With alcohol and drugs, and we've got a lot of our Aboriginal men that are caught up in the correctional centres now. The time has come to try to bring about change.
Funded by the Department of Family and Community Services, Black on Track will run from the local community hall, with 8-week programs exploring issues which affect Aboriginal men and their families.
Black on Track is trying to open doors up for Aboriginal men to start making positive decisions, not only for themselves, but for the family.
There's already a waiting list for the program, which it's hoped will also be adopted in other regions. Natasha Bayersdorf, NBN News.
The corridor between northern Lake Macquarie and Thornton is regarded as both environmentally important yet having scope for future development. The state government's plans suggest using 2,000 hectares of the land for residential development to create new suburbs in the Glendale and Thornton areas. Maitland Council welcoming the government's timing, with preparations already underway for more housing on former poultry farmland at Thornton North.
We're hopeful that in the Thornton North area that we could be exceeding another 9,000 people coming into that area. So that's a lot of exciting growth for Maitland.
Future industrial development is proposed for Wickley's Drive Beresfield and the Pasminco Cockle Creek site, while the environmental balance comes from protection of natural landmarks including the Mount Sugarloaf Range. Hexham wetland would also be protected, guiding potential development of minimised tank paddock area.
We have to keep in mind the very high quality of the environmental area around Hexham wetlands, and we need to balance that with the demand for new housing stock.
Public displays of the plan begin at Minmay next Wednesday. Gary Blair, NBN News. With an excavator now on the Charlestown site, a service station and several neighbouring properties have already made way for the Alto apartments. While it will be transformed into a landmark, earthworks will take up the initial months to construct a 3-level basement car park.
The builders tell me that they'll be digging a very big hole there, and we won't actually see anything above ground for probably 3 to 4 months.
106 apartments ranging in size from 1 to 3 bedrooms will be built in the complex, developers already dub as Newcastle's highest residential address. 80 are already sold, with the remainder expected to be snapped up as the Alto heads skywards over the next 18 months.
It'll be October, November next year before they get to the top, which is 10 stories, and the scaffolding and the covers should be coming down around about November next year, ready for people to be in and occupying at Christmas 2004.
And the ground floor of the Charlestown Road building is already in demand from business, months before the hunt for prospective buyers or tenants begins.
Although we have a pre-commitment from a very major company to occupy the majority of the ground floor, that will be an electronics company.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
It all happened in just a matter of seconds. Just before 7 this morning, the driver of a semi-trailer was turning left from a middle lane of Main Road Cardiff, but a motorcyclist was travelling in the left lane and the bike slammed into the wheels of the prime mover. It's believed the truck may have ran over the rider's arms. The man, thought to be in his early 30s, was taken to the John Hunter Hospital and underwent surgery. Meanwhile, a 33-year-old Bonnells Bay man was injured around 11 when his Hyundai Sonata crashed into a power pole beside Mandalong Road near Morisset. Police have still not been able to interview the driver, who is in a serious but stable condition at the John Hunter Hospital. And 2 people were taken to hospital following a 2-car accident at Northcott Drive, Katara this morning. Lyndall Derrig, NBN News.
It might have been a pretty cold and miserable homecoming for the Knights State of Origin representatives, minus Tamana Tahu, but once on the ground there were plenty of well-wishers. Still, last night's loss to Queensland took the shine away from the Blues series win.
They were at home, they had a lot of support there, and as I said, they were really determined to play well, and I mean we gave them some opportunities in the first half that we didn't give them in the first 2 games, so and they took full advantage of that.
The bruising encounter, on top of the hectic domestic representative season, is also starting to take its toll on the players.
We've all got a few niggling injuries, but we'll have a bit of a training on this afternoon with the rest of the team and evaluate things then.
Matt Gidley will play against ladder leaders Penrith tomorrow night. Captain Andrew Johns and Danny Baderis train this afternoon and are expected to play, while Tamana Tahu will be given until the last moment to prove his fitness for the important clash.
It's a do-or-die game and we must win. So speaking to the boys, they've trained really well this week, and mate, we'll come back and hopefully their enthusiasm rubs off on us.
In other night's news, informed winger Craig Hall has re-signed for 2 years. Colin Robinson, NBN News.
It's a service which makes a big difference to the lives of more than 1,500 people in Newcastle. Changes will soon be made to existing delivery routes, so now's an ideal time for the Newcastle and District Meals on Wheels to recruit more volunteers, especially drivers.
We all need new drivers, helpers. Some folk need people in the kitchens, and it's not a long job. Usually it's a fortnightly roster.
The organisation says volunteers are becoming increasingly hard to come by, but the service is in no danger of closing.
They seem to look after themselves, Newcastle, so I think we'll be right eventually, but we do need more people.
Anyone wanting to become a volunteer can call 4957 7097. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
Colburn continues to be a hotspot for both wine industry and tourism development. But there's concern that planning laws could allow bottle shops and hotels that don't necessarily sell hunter wines to open up among the region's premier wine-producing vines, a loophole vignerons want council to close.
We think it's just so important to protect the region, the integrity of the region, the integrity of the wines that we produce here. It's certainly a very important tourist destination. We're getting large numbers of tourists to the area, and we just want to showcase what we do best, and that's our wines.
While existing wineries won't be affected, new producers who want to have cellar door activities will need to have wine predominantly made from hunter fruit. Integrated tourism developments like the Harrigan's Irish Pub Complex would also be tightly regulated in the future. The timing of Cessnock Council's plan coincides with a move by one local company to protect the integrity of hunter-produced wine. Lisa McGuigan has applied to the licensing court for her cellar door of the Tempest 2 winery to only sell wine produced from grapes grown in the Hunter region. The timing may also prove important as vignerons try to avoid deregulation of state liquor licensing laws and the possibility of the current wine retailers' price war taking place on their doorstep. Gary Blair, NBN News.
I love the game very much. And as much as I didn't want to take the job on, I couldn't say no.
It looks like a simple country fair, but what happens at Stroud Showground on the third Saturday of July each year is definitely not average. It's a global event. Stroud Australia leading off similar gatherings in Stroud, UK, Canada and the US. The common thread of the four gatherings is to throw something. Ladies arm themselves with a purposely crafted rolling pin, while the men hurl a specially prepared brick. Clarence Town's Michael Radford is a 4 times champion in the past decade, but concedes it's tougher than it looks.
Discus athletes have got an advantage, but it is hard throwing it, so it's not easy.
The teenage Elibana discus thrower Christy Feidler launching the kitchen object proved liberating.
No, there's not much of a difference, but I reckon it's easier throwing the rolling pin.
Just how successful the Aussie throwers have been will become clearer early next week when their performances compared with the international results. Both sexes can find common ground at Stroud on the tug-of-war pitch. There's other ways for the blokes to let off steam, like letting the chips fly in the woodchip arena or even cutting loose with the chainsaw. The gathering also has another purpose, and that's to allow local residents to feel good about their area. Gary Blair, NBN News.
Early this morning, Newcastle Regional Museum staff were woken by news that's usually the stuff of nightmares. Someone had broken a side window, entered the touring Chinese dinosaur exhibition and stolen one of its smallest members, all in 7 minutes.
Just shock and horror. This has been a really important exhibition for Newcastle to have, and to find out that someone's gone and vandalised it in this way was just awful.
The Psittacosaurus walked the Earth some 110 million years ago, with the 60 centimetre high, 80 wide fossil being an early ancestor of the Triceratops. Today was due to be the exhibition's last, but while the small dinosaur was insured, its value goes far beyond monetary terms.
There's only a few of these Psittacosauruses left in the world. It's 110 million years old. You can't really go out and replace it. It's not like losing a VCR or something.
Newcastle detectives are investigating. Museum staff say they just want the exhibit returned.
For us to have it be damaged and gone in our museum is mortifying. We're really upset. We would like to do what we can to get that back.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
It was a difficult navigation manoeuvre for many boats, particularly the deep draft boats.
Queensland country was going to need something special to beat the Cockatoos at home, and Jason Ramsami's flick pass set the scene early. Skill and luck was going to play a big part, and the ball was bouncing the visitors' way in the first half. Fullback Shane Collins running away to score the second. A broken leg ruined Avoca's Emil Thomas's day. While things continued to go wrong on the field, this the perfect example of when it's just not your day, as the Healers chalked up 4 first-half tries. Down 34-0, a comeback win seemed about as likely as the mascot flying. But the Cockatoos did get some points on the board after the break, with Gosford's Ben Goodenough proving it, scoring a double. It couldn't stop the inevitable, the match finishing as a 49-14 hiding.
When the wheels fall off, they really fall off, and just nothing went right for us in that first half.
The race for semi-final spots continues in Newcastle Rugby League. Torres got its nose back in front for the minor premiership, while the battle to round out the 5 is also fierce. No one can catch Scone in Group 21 League, the Thoroughbreds beating second-placed Rams 58-12, while fourth-placed Aberdeen closed the gap on Denman. And in Black Diamond AFL, wins for Terrigal Avoca, Gosford and Cardiff.
Appropriately, it was in Sydney that farmers chose to deliver their message. They want government focus to shift from the city to the plight of country communities.
The bush is in decline. Sydney's starting to burst at the seams.
The Farmers Association's Rural Affairs Committee has called on the government to release a vision for the future of bush regions. It has its own plan targeting key country issues.
Health services, education services, we want to see properly constructed and costed regional infrastructure plans.
The association has set ambitious goals: a 20% increase in health, education and police services, a 20% rise in rural employment and farm production, a transport plan to cover the next 20 years, and a measurable increase in rural populations. Farmers hope the plan will hold weight in Macquarie Street.
They need to have a clear vision of where they want agriculture to be in 5 to 10 years. So we've developed that vision. We want them to pick it up.
In other developments today, Mal Peters was returned unopposed as president. The conference continues until Wednesday. Natasha Bayersdorf, NBN News.
It's been one big pool of success for Australia's divers in Barcelona. And with that, Matthew Helm and Robert Newbury scored a stunning upset to win Australia's first ever gold in the synchronised 10-metre platform. Happy to just live for the moment, the view towards the Athens Olympics for the new world number ones is also looking much better. For Helm, the gold completes a set of World Cup medals after yesterday's silver and bronze 2 years ago. But gold still comes as a big surprise.
Didn't really expect it. It's completely out of left field.
The precision landing for the pair completed a near-perfect week for Australia's diving team, claiming 2 golds and 2 silver medals. Its best ever World Cup performance. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
I didn't realise until we did get this sponsorship, and we sat down and we've seen videotapes, and we understand now that there is no such thing as safe speeding.
The theft of a 100-million-year-old Cetiosaurus from the Newcastle Regional Museum at the weekend has tongues flapping around the globe. On loan from China, the bones, worth $70,000, were part of a priceless collection. Security will be beefed up, but Museum Director Gavin Fry is prepared to work harder to attract future exhibitions.
They'll interrogate us more carefully. They'll, both internally with our own systems within the council and externally with anyone else who's going to lend things to us, they will want to be absolutely assured that whatever failing there was this time won't occur again, and we'll make sure that it doesn't.
The dinosaurs are being packed up this week for their next showing in New Zealand, minus one key piece, and the theft has left museum staff feeling deflated.
It was always a calculated risk. The system failed at this time, but certainly there won't be the same failing again. And I just hope it doesn't lead to a diminishing of the quality of service that we've been offering to people for the last 15 years.
It was a group of castaways with a difference at the Newcastle Business Club today as Hunter Life Education launched its campaign for this Friday's Dress Down for Drug Free fundraiser.
Well, Dress Down Drug Free is held this Friday the 25th of July, and it's where we invite local businesses and the community to dress down and buy a badge to support Hunter Life Education.
I guess any way at all to help kids affected by drugs, and this is a really simple way to help them.
I think it's very, very important that people, try to get through life without drugs and alcohol.
Yes, it is. It's the new look. It's outstanding, isn't it, as they say?
Hunter Life Education teaches Kinder to Year 6 students about the dangers of drugs, and workers are being urged to dress down this week and to make a donation. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Malaysia's Alex Yoong doesn't look any different from other aspiring racing car drivers, but this 27-year-old has gone faster than most. Last season, Yoong drove for Formula One team Minardi and has this season been competing in the American Kart Series. But the excitement of taking on Mount Panorama in November's 24-hour Enduro was an opportunity too good to pass up for Yoong, who has signed on as SAE Racing's #1 driver.
When I was smaller and growing up in Malaysia, was able to get the Bathurst videos, watching old Peter Brock winning and stuff. And so when the opportunity came up to race this year in Bathurst, I thought, it's something I've always wanted to do. So that's how it all came about.
The 2-litre 4-cylinder BMW will line up against some motoring monsters, including a Ferrari, Lamborghini, and last year's winner, a massive 7-litre Monaro. But team owner David Searle believes size doesn't always matter.
I think our main opposition is going to come from the Porsches this year. The Monaro will be a tough car to beat.
Colin Robinson, NBN News. Despite an early charge from Lambton High in the white, the Saints were the first to draw blood, with David McKellar posting the first goal of the game. And there was more to come, Blake Jensen taking on 3 defenders to come up trumps. Half-time couldn't come soon enough for the Novocastrians, and Lambton was a different team after the break, Dale Sheenan opening the school's account. But a second-half comeback was too little too late for Lambton, St Edward's clinching the win by a goal. At the Hunter Region CHS Athletics Championships, students had one more day to qualify for the state titles to be held in Sydney in early September. The race most likely to yield records was the 17 girls 100 metres. And Mount View High student Bianca Williams did just that in a time of 11.9 seconds ahead of Tomaree's Alison Grapper. Both girls going under the old record held by Australian hurdler Jackie Munro. In the 17 boys, Lee Bennett from Merewether High clocked a time of 11.4 seconds for the 100 to beat Tim Davis.
The cathedral was filled with the sounds of worship today, but it's also filling the pockets of insurance companies who keep jacking up the premiums.
It's risen 25% in the last 12 months, and our insurance advisors are saying to us, be prepared because it could go up another 25% in 2004.
Earthquake repairs, vandalism to lights and a $40,000 payout to a woman who sued after falling down the front steps have all added to the problem. But the Dean says the rising costs are getting harder to meet.
We've actually had to reduce our clergy staff from 3 to 2 this year in order really to pay the insurance premiums, which are in excess of 60 grand. We could have a priest for that doing the work that we're here to do.
The popular walk to the cathedral's bell tower may soon be out of bounds, and church officials will decide next week if they can still afford to insure the heritage building for the $43 million it's worth.
Where people, once if they fell down a step or in the grounds of a place like this, wouldn't sue the church, now they sue us.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
I think it's pretty important that people aren't tied to a political party. They seem to have their agendas perhaps a little bit different, so I think it's pretty important that they're just an independent working for the city.
I've been running since I've done the injury on Sunday, and it's progressively getting better, but the concern we've got is that it is a hamstring tear, so if I do go out on Sunday and make it worse, I could be out for an extended period of time, which at this point of the season isn't very good.
While some of Newcastle University's touch football team was taking on players from the Knights, the call was going out for volunteers to help in the running of the Australian University Games to be held in the city between September 28 and the 3rd of October. Volunteers were used for last year's Eastern University Games with success, and a couple of ladies who gave their time up then are back for another go.
We just love to be able to get out and get involved with all the sporting events around the area.
Organisers need between 350 and 400 volunteers, with 140 from the university already signed up. Volunteers are needed in a range of positions, including media and public relations, to referees. Even a tourist has been enlisted to help.
Just being actually immersed into the Australian life is great. I feel more like a local now than just a traveller.
And then there's this advice from 3 ladies in the know.
Get out and do it.
Yeah,
Go
your
bottoms
and do it.
Yeah. Keep active in your old age.
Yeah.
That's the main thing.
Stop the arthritis from setting in.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
Do it.
There are few moments more tender in the undersea world than when a mother nurtures its young. This southern right whale and calf spent today close to shore off a quiet Newcastle beach, the sight attracting onlookers in their droves, keen to get a close-up look at the beautiful mammals.
Oh, it's incredible. It's amazing. You don't expect them to be this close to shore and to be able to see them without binoculars. It's quite amazing.
It's absolutely fabulous. I can't believe it's so close to the shore. I just seen my wife, they're any closer beyond the beach.
The mother is thought to have given birth in the past week and is having a few quiet days as she rests and suckles her youngster in the shallow water just behind the surf.
It's breached a few times, so it's wonderful to see it. I think everyone here is really excited.
Early whaling in Australia killed large numbers of southern rights, and now only a few hundred visit our coastline each year. These people are the new whalers, interested in their preservation, not their destruction.
I've been in Mary with how long? Over 50 years, and, I've never seen anything like this.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Despite winning one more game, the Waratahs still trailed the Wanderers by 2 on the competition ladder and soon by 5 on the scoreboard after Chris Nilsson's solo run. Greg Tolhurst booting the first Tars points, while belting defence was also a highlight. Country rep Graham Thompson would like to have been playing for the Australian Rugby Shield today. The Waratahs wished he was after this effort early in the second half. 15-6, the Tars refused to give up as Ben Flanagan finished some good work in the corner. Anthony Foster struck straight back for the Wanderers. But when Flanagan made it a double, the Tars were on a roll, closing the gap to just 4 points. The match winner looks certain to follow, but the Tars will rue this missed chance. The Wanderers home 2016 to now hold the Hawthorn Cup and take the box seat for the minor premiership. With captain coach Daniel Smales out for the season, country halfback Kane Bradley injured and their form in question, Cessnock proved the doubters wrong in the best possible way. Steve Storey setting up the home sides first. Another midfield attack sparked by Storey soon had winger Daniel Spiteri sprinting away for a second and a 12-point lead. A great run from Daniel Forder had David Greenup try-bound as well. While the centre returned the favour soon after as the Goannas raced ahead 22-0 to set up an important win. Overnight, Kurt Storworthy grabbed a double as West retained the outright competition lead, hammering Maitland 78-0. The result only clouding the future of the Pumpkin Pickers in First Division football.
This is where a new public school at
– Champagne on Ice was one of 68 yachts taking part in the Sydney to Gold Coast race. The 15-metre sloop was left wallowing about 30 kilometres off Port Stephens after the rudder fell off in rough seas. It took the Coastal Patrol 8 hours to tow the yacht to port. And a yacht half the size also needed help last night. Solo skipper John McTavish was sailing from Foster to Port Stephens when he says he was hit by 50-knot winds that were blowing him to New Zealand. Fatigued and seasick, the Lake Macquarie skipper called for help. The water police towed him to safety from 12 kilometres out to sea.
While they've happily made a home for themselves in Burdekin Park, these flying foxes may not be aware not everyone has welcomed them as residents. It's hoped this will give them the message. A sound deterrent system is being installed in the park. It was also used in April, but it failed to remove the nocturnal natives from the town centre.
We've heard a lot of comments that people aren't coming to the park like they used to because of the mess and noise.
The device will be switched on Monday and will be played at 4:30 in the morning when the foxes are trying to roost. Singleton Council is also seeking permission to use alternative methods to remove the species, such as using water hoses and lights. Singleton Council has already invested more than $12,000 in what appears to be a case of man versus nature. But so far it seems nature is winning. But Council admits its battle is far from over and the foxes could find a worse place to hang out.
And if you do move them on and they move to somewhere that's more undesirable, then you've got more problems.
Lyndall Derrig, NBN News.
Meet Brian Nash. He plays off scratch and drives more than just fear into golf balls. Third in the world 2 years ago, Nash has long been one of the longest hitters in the world.
Well, the longest drive I've ever had in competition is 408 yards.
That's around 373 metres, but says he can launch them even deeper. Enter Nulkabar publican Mark Bolsma. Off one, but with just as lusty an appetite for hitting long, the 29-year-old is credited with a 383-metre drive in competition.
I have hit the odd one over 400 metres, but that's unofficially so.
If he can produce that type of form at the Australian Championships in September, he'll take on the world's best in America. He showed glimpses today at the Greg Norman-designed vintage course near Cessnock, driving for 275 metres into the wind to outreach his American rival.
Oh, this is great for someone like me. I'm just a novice at it and hopefully trying to become better myself.
But Nash has plenty of tricks in his bag, like using a putter off the tee, or proving short clubs can still go a long way. Happy travelling with his roadshow of tricks, he may one day join the professional tour, but everyone would love to play under some of his rules. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Former lecturer Ian Ferns has accused the University of Newcastle of a cover-up. On the Sunday program, he claimed the university passed 15 students from its graduate school in Malaysia, despite earlier being failed for plagiarism for stealing work off the internet.
You know, the 70% of students in that class who didn't cheat, who know damn well it's inappropriate to pass other people's work off as your own, have been punished by comparison with the 30% or so that did cheat.
Vice-Chancellor Professor Roger Holmes today denied the university acted inappropriately in handling the allegations. He also denied that the uni is soft on plagiarism and that fee-paying students are assessed differently.
I want to vigorously and strenuously deny all of those imputations made in the Channel 9 program. They are grossly untrue.
While the university held its own investigation into the matter, a second investigation will now be conducted by the ICAC.
We've changed and modified our plagiarism policy to make sure that that won't happen again.
The university admits its reputation has been damaged by the publicity surrounding the allegations, but whether its image can ever be fully restored, only time will tell. It's still not known whether the students in question were involved in plagiarism. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News. This is where a new public school at Ashtonfield will eventually be built. But there's been little progress on the site since the school was first promised during Labor's state election campaign in 1995.
The Labor Party made a big song and dance on the Monday just before the election, promising to build this school, yet nothing in this year's budget that gives any real indication the school is going to be built.
While the opposition admits a school can't be built overnight, it says 8 years is far too long to wait.
I'm quite happy to make this government embarrassed and make them act and give some real commitment to build this school.
Mr Brogden also claims nearby schools simply can't take any more students and soon the area will also need a new high school. But member for Maitland, John Price, has accused the opposition of political point scoring. He says the school is on track and its plans are being finalised. This afternoon, the Education Minister also added a development application will be lodged with Council towards the end of this year. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
We've got 5 guys that we're going to have to make a decision on which of those 5 we're going to get it.
The sexual assault and murder of Stacey Lee Kirk at Maitland Show in February 1984 had been one of the Hunter region's unsolved crimes. After an 18-month re-examination of the case, police today told State Coroner John Abernethy, with the help of DNA technology, they had a suspect for the killing.
We have identified
a person that was with her that night, and as I say, it's my belief that he was the one that took part in the murder.
He's former sideshow operator Ian Raymond Sargent, who was killed in a truck accident at South Grafton in February last year. DNA samples obtained after the 36-year-old's death were found to be the same as samples taken during the investigation into Stacey Kirk's murder. Coroner Abernethy also heard the then 19-year-old man had shown an interest in Stacey on the Thursday night of the Maitland show. Stacey's friend Annette Tyson told police Sargent had invited the teenager to come back later for a big kiss and a big hug. He's believed to be the last person to have seen Stacey alive before her body was found several days later under a tarp near a showground toilet block. During the 19-year investigation into Stacey Kirk's murder, 4 showmen were considered suspects. Detective Pollock today told Coroner John Abernethy that despite abundant rumours, there was no direct or indirect evidence linking the men to the case, and police now no longer consider them to be suspects. Police now hope the breakthrough gives Stacey's family long-awaited answers about her death.
We're worried about people's lives. They've had this for 19 years, and it would be my submission to them that it is a closure for the whole family.
The inquest continues tomorrow. Gary Blair, NBN News.
"128 of the state's best trainee pros on the best resort course in New South Wales. And what an interesting start for Travis Manning. 5 bogeys and 4 birdies on the front 9 alone. Leading the State Order of Merit for trainees, Mark Gilson finished runner-up here last year, but began today with a 77. Belmont's Kurt Lind started much better. Picking up a shot on the second, saves like this made sure he finished the day 2 under. Victorian Jeremy Westerway enjoys a share of the overnight lead, however, with a 68 setting the early pace. Half the New South Wales women's amateur team completed a 2-day training camp at Newcastle today, fine-tuning their game ahead of the Gladys Hayes Cup in September under the eye of coach Peter Van Wiegen. Leading the way will be Julie Swanson, recently crowned the state amateur champion.
Yeah, well, it is a confidence boost knowing that I can perform under pressure and, hopefully continue on for the next 5 or 6 weeks.
It's the second time Swanson will play for her state at the Nationals and her first since 1995, where the Blues finished runner-up.
We were in it until the last day, basically, and we got beaten on the last day, which was very disappointing, but I think the team is a lot stronger this year.
And it's a reflection of the strength of women's golf in the region, with fellow Newcastle club member Janelle Smith, along with Waratah's Vicky Tutt, named in the team, with Tuggerah Lake star Nikki Garrett also named.